So welcome everyone. Thanks for coming. First of all, thank you, of course, to SwiftCraft for having me. It's always nice to be in the UK for me. This is a session about improving your app with quick wins and the big benefits and impact of those wins. But before we get started, I will do a quick introduction so you know why am I talking about this. Like, I can talk, but doesn't really make me functional to talk about this stuff. So to get to know me a little bit better, my name is Hidde. It's a name you probably haven't heard before, other than if you know me already. it's it's a very uncommon Dutch name. I always say it's hidden without the N because that's it. That's the way you spell it and that's the way I pronounce it. When people ask me what do you do, I always pick one of the random job titles. It's a bit difficult because I was a designer. Now I'm an indie app developer or whatever, sometimes a marketeer even. I like to think that I'm an independent software maker, so it really depends on the day. Sometimes I'm in sales, sometimes in marketing. Never my favorite days necessarily. But anyway, I go back from the time where apps used to look like this, where gradients were cool and things looked like real paper and plastic and everything shined over the top. So about 15 years ago. And nowadays I also build my own apps. I do it under the name Modem, but currently have 6 apps in the App Store. This is also a difficult part of my introduction. Like, oh, you're an app maker? What app do you make? And then one is a kitesurf tracking app, one is a music app, one is a ChatGPT client. They're nothing alike, completely different from each other, but I just like building them. Oh yeah, this is what they look like, sort of. They're all also different in style. You can clearly see that I still like to pretend to be a designer every now and then. But there's a new one coming. Paul already mentioned it yesterday. Together we worked on this native Mac OS app for App Store Connect because we didn't like App Store Connect. And if you're like me and ship a lot of updates, you have to visit App Store Connect a lot. So this is just the way to solve your problem. Just you build an app, right? Funny enough, we wanted to say this app launched, but it's not. Spoiler alert. Anyway, just to quickly show you, we did some funny things. So it's literally sort of like what Xcode is for building your app. Helm tries to be for shipping your app. Does some cool things, and I think it looks nice. Yeah, so this is the thing available now, right? This is what you hope. But this is also the story of being an indie app developer. Not everything goes as planned. You have something called like in review. And then we were in review for 40 hours. We thought, let's be clever. Let's reject the build and resubmit it. So we rejected the build, and now we're stuck in a bit of a pickle, a kitschy bit of a pickle here, where you have where we have an app stuck in canceling for review, but it's still in review, so we can't do anything at the moment till Apple fixes it. But you can still join the free beta, so good luck with that. We're here to talk about this. Improve your app with quick wins. Before we get started on improving and actual tips, we need to digest a bit, like, what does it actually mean? Because a lot of these words can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. Like an app can be a web app or an Android app, or an iOS so in this case, it's an app or any Apple platform. And improving your app in this case means it's easier to use for your user or yourself if you're your own user. And quick wins means basically everything you will see today should be able to be done or added within a day of work. So why are quick wins this important? Why am I talking about these things? If you're in a big organization, you often see a chart like this where a project manager or product owner comes into play and says like, yeah, we need to do more issues that are easy to do, but have great impact on the app. Realistically, a lot of big organizations tend to forget these little tasks and just ignore them. But also, they try to put a lot of KPIs on it. We love KPIs in big organizations. I think personally, it's up to you, of course. I think impact should not be measured in numbers because the number of likes on something doesn't really mean a bigger impact on your product. It should be measured in social impact in a way. And if it's really added value for your app, you will hear people talking about it. And to give you an example, this is obviously Netflix or whatever streaming platform in this case. They added this tiny little button, which didn't cost them a lot of work. They knew all the intro lengths, they knew everything. They added this tiny little button and the impact was huge. Everyone was absolutely crazy about being able to skip the intro. It sounds silly, but the impact of this small button is massive. You use it every day, but also this is basically free marketing. So as soon as people love something that's new about your product and they will shout about it, they tell you about your product. So in a way, this is a double quick win. And the reason is because everybody is lazy. We're all lazy in this room, and that's not a bad thing. I think by nature, we like to do as little as possible with a maximum outcome. This is not the type of lazy of like, I only want to stay in bed and do anything, but it fitted the slide better, so I just added the bed for that. But yeah, keep this in mind. Everyone is lazy. Try to do as much for little as possible. So now we know why we're talking about this. I would like to start with a few highlights on what I'm going to tackle here. The first one is enhancing your first impressions, then extending your app's presence, presenting things more visually, and of course, keeping things simple. So let's start with the first one, enhancing your first impressions. We all built a text field like this before. It's very easy to do. Also, by the way, all my code example will be SwiftUI. If you're stuck in UI kit, this is not the talk for you. I'm sorry for you. I hope to see you in a couple of years. But this is how easy it is to, in generally, make a text field in SwiftUI, right? We all done it. It's very simple. But that's also where a lot of people actually stop with the text field. They get a value, they use the value somewhere else, that's it. Maybe a submit button, but that's it. But if you add just a few more lines of code, it will have a massive impact on your user experience. And I will guide us through these lines of code step by step to tell you more what I mean. Let's start with this one. It's called .text content type, and what this does is it will help you present an autofill. So for an email, you'll get an email autofill for your name. Like with my name, Hidde van der Ploeg is super long name. So it's instead of typing all those letters, I just can press one tap on the button and it's there. Sounds straightforward, but it's honestly forgotten so many times with text fields. And the good thing is, I showed you email and name, but there's loads of them. I think there's like 20 different text content types in the text field. There's even one for flight numbers and for credit card numbers and shipping tracking numbers. Like they thought of everything. I'm not sure if they all work because it's still Apple. And I've not tested all 20, of course, but at least if you put it and it doesn't work, it will be fixed in the future probably. But just that single line already saves us a couple seconds at least. Then there's the focus state. The focus state was a bit difficult when SwiftUI was introduced. Today, focus states are really easy to handle. And it's really important to work with the change of focus. So what you can see here that on the submit, I'm not just like submitting the text. I also check if the next field is empty or not. If it's not, then it automatically will highlight the next input field. Again, saves another tab. And to create a focus state, it can be as easy as creating a custom little enum or just even a Boolean already. So literally, again, with a few lines of code, you add focus state. And while we're on the submitting part, having the right submit label is also important because of the different visual hierarchy. Like a done button becomes like blue, I think, at this point, while the next button is still gray, but it also communicates what's going to happen to the user. This is not a necessity, but it helps with communicating to the user. So with just these few lines of code, we already saved the user at least 30 seconds per text field probably, which is great because it means less work, more done. Then the next thing, the most popular text field in an app these days is the search text field. And we all know that, well, most people know that adding a search to a SwiftUI view can be done with a single line of .searchable. But what often is forgotten is giving suggestions. And giving suggestions, again, can save a lot of tabs. Of course, in this case, it's just a single array of strings. It really depends on the case what you need to suggest. But if you're really fancy, you can even show different types of suggestions. So this is in our now playing app, where if you look for something, the first option is to actually just search whatever you typed, and then the rest is just suggestions of music things. But like I told you, with the suggestion, you can even customize the view that you're showing. So in this case, we present like a little music icon or a search icon to communicate the difference. And if you're really fancy with search suggestions, you can use this fancy API called natural language. And this is one of those APIs that sounds very scary because it sounds a bit like AI, MLE, like, okay. But actually, if you look into it, it's not that difficult to use. And if you do find it difficult, ask ChatGPT these days. It's quite an old API. He, she, they, them, it, I don't know what to call an AI chatbot at this point, knows all about it. And here's a quick example of how you can create suggestions based on the words you typed. Now, this is a bit overcomplicated, but you can do it as easy as detecting some words. Then another one that's often forgotten, but really important, are keyboard shortcuts and hover states. We all have buttons in our apps. I don't think there's maybe a few apps, but almost all apps have buttons in the app. They might not always look as sexy as this, but there's at least some form of button. The thing is, clicking on a button or tapping on a button is one thing, but if you have a mouse and keyboard, or especially a keyboard in this case, you kind of want to just do this instead, right? It feels natural, it feels faster, yet it's often forgotten. So adding that is also, again, a single line of code, and it makes a big difference to the user, because if they press the expected shortcut and it's not working, your app feels a bit broken. Oh. And then for hover states, it's also it's getting more and more important. This is the contrast is a bit bad, but you could see a hover state sliding from left to right. Hover states in general are a lot more important since VisionOS. In VisionOS, if a button doesn't have a hover state, it literally feels like you can't tap on it, because it literally shows you what you're tapping on. Because you could do this, but no one does that. And if you look at all the Apple platforms and see which platforms actually have hover states, there's only 2 that doesn't. And argumentally, iOS can have hover states. It's not as important, but if you start your iOS app, just already add those hover states, because you don't know if it's going to be used on an iPad at some point. And it's better to do it beforehand than to go through all your buttons again and add it later. And adding a hover state can be as easy as a .hover effect. You can also go fancy and have like a nice shape that matches the view it's on. This will give it nice highlight around the artwork in this case, and it just feels a lot nicer in general. So then we're on to the next point: extending your app's presence. What do I mean with extending your app's presence? I think this is not just a quick win for your users necessarily, it's also a really quick win for your app to grow and to keep on top of your users' mind. And what I mean with extending your app's presence is that your app can be found and be noticed outside of your own app. We all use this quite a bit, I think. It's the Spotlight. I think it's the most used text field in iOS. And the good thing is, there's this thing called app intents. And app intents is becoming more and more important to iOS and all the Apple platforms. Funny enough, it's quite easy, quite simple to add an app intent. If you're not familiar with app intent, this is not an app intent talk, so I'm not going to dive deep into app intents, but it could be as easy as just opening your app. In this case, we open the app, we ask for a specific name as an input, speaker name, we find the speaker, present the speaker. Once you have the app intent, this is all it takes to add a shortcut for the shortcuts app. You define the app intent, you say what phrases it needs to be. And with just these two little things that can be done in a day, you can be opened through Siri. You will find in shortcuts and a lot more. So we already mentioned shortcuts, but these days, if you have just done what you just saw, you'll be showing up in the Spotlight. You will also be showing up in the Shortcuts app. And you will sometimes even show up with random search queries. So in this case, I look for Rolling Stones. I have a goal that I want to listen to all the Rolling Stone top 500 albums, but I also listen to or view the Rolling Stone by Bob Dylan in this case. So even though I search for Rolling Stone, 2 of my apps show up out of the blue. And that's really good because you might have forgotten about that app because a lot of users have hundreds of apps on their phone. So if you show up in random search results, it's not completely random, of course, because it matches something, then at least you'll be on top of mind again. And a good friend of mine even wrote about app intent-driven development. It's actually Antoine van der Lee. He was too tall for one slide. But he wrote a great article about why and how app intents have become more and more important. Because this year, or last year, I guess, even widgets got interactivity was based on app intents. I suspect as well that most functionality goes to app intents because I think, the bold statement, I think a lot of the AI things of Apple will be focused around intents as well. If app intents too new for you and you're a bit more old school, or you just want to feed your app even more to the system because the more the merrier, you can even use user activity. You create a user activity, you give it some values, and then you'll also pop up in Spotlight and stuff. And handling a user activity is as simple as on continued user activity. Then another one is drag and drop support. This is also, in my opinion, a highly underrated API. And it's as easy as doing a dots draggable on a transferable object. And you can, the fun part is, at least that's I think that's the fun part, is that you can style whatever you see in the preview when you drag as well, there's probably some limitations, but as nice as you want. Let's call it that. And then also the on-drop destination, you can just handle it as it is. And the is targeted is basically, okay, you're dropping on this little view. So you can change how it looks, like drop here or drop it like it's hot. I don't know. You can do whatever you want. To give an example, with Helm, we did this for keywords because the order of your keywords in ASO is quite important. And I don't know if you've ever tried to move a keyword in App Store Connect with the comma-separated string. It's so finicky, and you often forget to replace the comma. So we're like, well, just make the keywords more visual, so you can just drag and drop it to change the order. We do the hard work for you. Hard work is changing a string. Let's call it hard work. Yeah, it sounds cooler. we do all the hard work for you. Speaking of which, the next one is like presenting things more visual. I know this is a bit of a difficult topic because this is very design driven, and I know design is hard. It takes a lot of practice, and honestly, the best way to start is just to copy others and try to understand why things work they are. But I'll give you some quick tips on how you can make things a bit more visual, a bit more appealing. The first thing to keep in mind is show and don't tell. Try to always think like, how can I make this whatever content be more appealing to the user? An example in now playing is that I'm Rickrolling you all right now. No, just kidding. We have these little labels We call them endorsements, I think. We could have made it a list of like, okay, this is the genre, this is the release date, this is the one, this award, we showed this video. But instead, I am still a designer by heart, so I made a lot of different not app icons, icons for a lot of different content types. Of course, not everyone can make their own icons, but there's plenty and plenty of icon sets out there. You can even use SF symbols if you're really adventurous. But the point here is that even by going a little bit further and also giving all the instruments a separate icon, you can present it a lot more visual, and it looks a lot nicer to the user because it can see a lot more in one scan instead of having to read line by line. One API that helps with making things more visual is link presentation. And honestly, I think link presentation is quite cool. It's one of my favorite APIs, even though it doesn't have a SwiftUI view yet. Spoiler. There's a lot of different ways. We all have a link in our app as well to maybe an about page or maybe some content about your topic. But there's often a link. So this is one way to do it, right? We all know the link, destination URL, it's easy. Shows up like a button, great, done. If you're really fancy and modern, you can do like these markdown stuff and do it like inline in a string. It shows up like a little blue link or in your accent color, I think. Not really ideal, I would say, but it works in some situations. But what if you present it like this? You give it a link, you get a nice OG image, you get the title, you get the URL underneath, and this is all for free with link presentation. Even when it's your favorite ads that has not been cancelled by anyone, you get a free video player with it. So you can press on the actual play button and it will play in a system video player. That's just a free video player with just a single view. And this is how simple a link presentation view can be. Like I said, it is a Swift or UI kit view or app kit view, I guess, as well. But with a little bit of UI view representable, it's very easy to present in anywhere in SwiftUI as well. Because it literally only takes a URL and it does all the other stuff for you. Yeah, that's the documentation, really cool, Hidde. Really, people were really waiting for this. But it does show actually that it has been there since iOS 13, which is almost 5 years ago already. And still, a lot of people don't use the power of getting metadata of a link. And this is as simple as getting metadata from a link. It has been updated to use the new cool SwiftUI async await stuff. So you don't even have to handle closures anymore. This is as easy as it is to get the title of a website. And we use this as well in Helm to present, just to show that you can benefit this to present things more visual. We do this in Helm to, instead of having a boring little text field that says support website, privacy policy, we also present you a little nugget of what is this website linking to? Because then in one view, you can actually see and confirm that the privacy policy actually goes to the privacy policy and not by accident to your main website still. Animation. We had to do that. I had to. Have you ever used this one? This is the best. Okay, sorry. Animation is great. Animation is great to make things visual, make things feel a bit more organic. If you look around you in real life, anything around you, never is anything really 100% static when it changes, right? It goes from A to B, from state A to B, but you're not. If I move my hand from A to B, it's not just at B out of the blue. So by having a small animation, you can make things feel a lot more organic. And since last year, adding animations is as easy as it gets, really. This doesn't take a day. This takes a second to write, right? You take the value that changes. You give it a little animation value. Bouncy is cool. Smooth is nice. Snappy is fast. But you can also still, if you're really into animation, you can go as crazy as you want, but don't overdo it. To give you an example, this is already, they did it quite well for widgets. Like the default animation is quite smooth. It's a blur in and out. But with adding with a few lines of code, it makes the transition a lot nicer, a lot more playful. And this is not just for widgets. This works for any numeric value that changes within your views. It doesn't mean that every single number has to animate like this, but if it's quite an important number, it does give it a bit more fun, and a bit more fun is what we all want, because life is too serious already. There's also this third-party library called POW. It used to be like $99 for one lifetime purchase, but they got acquired by Emerge Tool, and they open sourced it now, so it's 100% free, and it gives you loads of different transitions for free, basically. So if you want to make your app look cool for free, this is the one to get. Okay, then we're to, I think, our last topic already, keeping things simple. This is a topic that I think I hold closest to my heart when I build anything or design anything. Again, referring back to being lazy, I always told people I was a great designer because I'm the laziest person in the room. That really holds true. I'm a good type of lazy, don't worry, I do work. But one thing to keep things simple is to keep focus. And to keep focus sounds easy, but it's actually really, really difficult. So a trick that I often do is writing down a clear goal for every view that I create or every app that I create. And I mostly write it in my custom notes, but sometimes oh yeah, sorry, wrong slide still. To jump back, this is, for example, this is in Helm, our App Store optimization page. In App Store Connect, this is just called app information because it's your name and subtitle, and keywords we stole basically from the update. So, but we put them together because we believe that this is the only things. These are the things you change to optimize your App Store search position, right? And to jump quickly back to making things visual. Oh, yeah. We even show a little preview of what it would look like in the App Store, just so you can see before you save, like, okay, is it still clear of what my app does in the App Store? And how do my screenshot look with it? And you get a free fake 5-star review with it as well. So that's always good for your ego. The get button obviously doesn't do anything. It's just for you to make things, see things more visual again. Oh. No, I've lost. Yeah, okay. Sometimes, like I said, I write down a clear goal for most of my views, and sometimes I even put it on top of the file. So in this case, on the ASO view, it's like, okay, this page should only help make improving your ASO. Everything else should stay out of here. And by writing down the clear goal, if you notice yourself adding more features to the same page and look back to the clear goal, then you can easily think, well, maybe this should not be here. Maybe this should be somewhere else. So with that in mind, you can continuously ask yourself, what can I do to make reaching this goal easier? And the importance here is the repetitiveness of asking yourself these questions. Because we all know how easy it is to make a feature and you don't know where to go with this feature. So often you whack it in the home tab or a random settings page. But honestly, give yourself some thought and give a clear goal in mind. To example, again, on achieving a goal, we warn the users if they do something that's not good for your ASO, like having double keywords, like having a keyword in your name and your keywords, or having a special character in your name, but using all the characters, that's apparently not good. You don't have to worry anymore. Like, we do the work again for you as a user. You don't have to think of things that you don't want to think of. You just want to ship your app in this case. And also, you get some nice messages like people saying, "Hey, you already saved me on keyword." This was in the first beta already of Helm, where a friend of mine texted me like, "Oh, it's already saving me keywords," and it was a lot of the app was still broken. So you have direct impact with just a small gesture. Again, because we know the string, we can apply the rules, we can warn the user if they're trespassing those rules. And it also is important to remove extra tabs. Always think of how can I do as much with this, how can I do the computer as much as possible and myself as little as possible? Because we know that we can program computers to do and think of whatever we want. And we should use that in every single situation. So whatever we can, always let the computer do the work for you, because you don't want to work, let's be honest. As a last but most important tip, I think this slide, I put it in every single presentation I give, because I didn't know the shortcut to run a unit test until yesterday during the lightning talks. But this shortcut, I press it all the time, because this shortcut opens the human interface guidelines. And every time when I go to bed, I read a little bit of the human interface guidelines, and I can sleep nicely. And I hope you can do the same, because they updated a lot and you will learn a thing or two as well. So with that in mind, thank you very much. I hope you learned something. I'll be around. I also chat a lot on Twitter and Mastodon, talk shit about things, but also I share some of the work in progress. Yeah, I think have fun with whatever you're building. And thank you very much.